Hey, what's happening, y'all? Showman Flex back at it again with another dope episode of the Flex Files, man. Let's talk about it, right? So, and I'm going to be literally talking while looking at the road. I'm not looking at the camera. But the Charlie Kirk situation, I know everybody's talked about it, right? The unfortunate shooting of Charlie Kirk, right? Nobody should lose their husband. Nobody should lose their family member. Their father. He was a father. I'm gonna come off and say this, y'all. I was not a supporter of him. I'm not heavy into politics, so I don't really talk about my political stance, but I will say that I'm not on the right-leaning side, right? I'm kind of in the middle in a sense, but I'm not in the right-leaning side. But I'm also mature enough to understand that nobody deserves to lose their life because you didn't like what they had to say, right? That's just something that that's not how I was raised, right? You feel me? But what I will say is that I also cannot police people into feeling a certain type of way, especially when it comes to people that look like me and other minorities, of things that he said about people that look like me as well, that look like my mother, that look like my sister, that look like, women in my community, right? And I hate to make it a white and black thing, but he would consistently talk about black people, black on black violence, gang violence, which is obviously a thing, right? It's a thing for sure. But not talking about the shootings from white young men, white young men that shoot up schools, institutions, right? He wouldn't really talk about that, which he also wouldn't talk about gun reform, right? It's just a lot of things. And even, we can even go into, because people may be like, well, why weren't you a fan of him? Why weren't you a fan of Charlie Kirk? I wonder, he wasn't a bad man and this and that. Listen, it's hard for me to be a fan of somebody that says something like of the sort of, when I see a black person that's flying a plane or a black person that's in this position. But let's talk about a black person flying a plane thing. Him saying, I'm going to question his qualifications. Wonder if it's DEI. It's hard for me to support somebody that says something like that about men or people that look like me, black women that are my skin complexion. It's hard for me to. I'm sorry. It's just hard for me to support somebody that has that type of mindset. Somebody that that says that Juneteenth shouldn't be a holiday. The celebration of our freedoms that our ancestors worked hard for and had to suffer for, that we didn't have to suffer for. Or the fact that slavery, black people were less violent when they were slaves. So slavery wasn't a bad thing. People that say slavery wasn't a bad thing, it's just something to me, whether your perspectives of that are different than mine, cool, whatever. But that's not my perspective. I love my life as not being a slave. Now, yeah, there are things about us that make us slaves in this society and system in a way. But I cannot support, people or a man that says those type of things about people that look like me. I can't do that. If I would be selling myself short if I was to support somebody like that. Can I not support him and still feel sorry for him and his family? Absolutely. Again, nobody deserves to lose their life. Communication, conversation, real dialogue is what's necessary, which is what he would do at his college campuses. But the rhetoric also appeared to me that he never had an open mind, really, to truly understanding people that don't look like him and these people that don't look like him and their issues that they deal with and the reasons why they deal with things in the way that they deal with them, right? And he wouldn't want to see that side. That's what it would look like to me. I appreciate conversation of nuance. I appreciate conversation of, obviously I appreciate conversation of truth, but I also appreciate conversation when it could be dialogue of listening to understand, not just always listening to disagree, right? I mean, you can always disagree, of course, but when you never want to, you just want to disagree and never understand. So at that point is listening to just respond, right? That's where I have an issue with, you know. So a person that doesn't have an understanding or want to have an understanding of people that, you know, want to celebrate their ancestors giving them freedom of slavery, and that's a trivial thing. I have an issue with that. You know, my ancestors didn't have the same freedoms that I have. They didn't. They just didn't. And so, and a multitude of other things that he has said, and that a lot of people on that side say and agree with and believe. You know, that's something that I have an issue with. And for me, I just, you know, that's why I've always said gun reform is necessary. And of course, people be like, well, what about mental health? Of course, mental health is necessary, right? But it's kind of funny because a lot of Republicans and conservatives nowadays have been crying for mental health, right? But I remember a time where Republicans didn't really ever talk about mental health. That was just something that you would hear from the left side. That's something that you would hear from left-leaning people, right? So they would make it to where, like, you know, it was a sin to talk about mental health or mental illness, right? And they would just throw the Bible in front of you and cast out any demons of mental health. That was always it's just interesting that now the right-leaning side people are talking about mental health. And again, y'all, both sides are corrupt. Both sides of government are corrupt. And they are made to be like that for a reason. I want y'all to understand that. But the one thing that I can't allow is for people to be a little disingenuous, and people to act as if they never had an issue with mental health, or that they never made it seem like it wasn't a big deal, because that's what it seemed like to me on the right side. Of course you need mental health, but to assume that everybody because you talking about mental health, you're just going to assume that everybody ain't got ill intentions when they purchase a gun. A gun is deadly. There needs to be, and hell, gun reform can be a part of mental health. That can be, look, you could, I'm gonna be completely honest with you. Maybe you could be shit. If you want to purchase a gun, you have to go through mental health assessment, diagnostic. That's a part of the gun reform. You have to do a test, mental test, before you purchase a gun. That's what the fuck you have to do. Now, even with that, you still don't really, that way, but that need to be a part of it. So for people that be like, no, it's a mental health issue, motherfucker, you can't have one without the other. Why would you want to have one without the other? That don't even make sense. That don't even fucking make sense. A gun is deadly. The boy, this is going to be the last point that I make about this, okay? This boy, he was 22 years old, but I'm in my 30s, so I'm sorry, 22 years old is a boy to me. But the fact that this young man was as experienced with a gun, a pew-pew, as he was, right? Because his parents taught him the ways of that ever since he was a 10-year-old boy. Footage of him, pics of him being released of him toting around a gun at 10 years old. Like, he was heavily indoctrinated at a very young age of how to carry that thing and pew that thing from a distance. From what they saying it was from a distance that he pewed him with that type of accuracy and precision. And his father, 27-year-old vet, that boy knew how to shoot, and he learned from his daddy and his mama, okay, of people that were Republicans. So, you know, that it's extremely deadly. An instant, okay? An instant. So all I'm saying is, you know, that's my take on it. And again, of course, you know, like people that are celebrating it, like, although I can't, you know, like, I'm not going to police people of how to feel about Charlie Kirk, because, you know, there were a lot of things that he said that were extreme about black people that look like me. He probably wouldn't care nothing about me, for real. I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm going to keep it a buck, right? But all in all, I still wouldn't. I hate to even see somebody lose their life like that. I don't care if it's my worst enemy. I don't even care. Like they say, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. You know, that's just me. I wouldn't. I want to have a conversation. I want to really get you to understand, and we're going to get into it, but I'm not about to puke. Nah. But that's my take on it for today, y'all. Hey, happy Friday. As you can see, it's still daylight out here in the beautiful state of California, LA. But hope y'all have a blessed weekend. It's your man Flex. I'm out. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Don't forget to click that subscribe button below so that way you know when I post new content videos for y'all. Thank y'all. Shout out to all the new subscribers, old subscribers, keeping this channel growing. It's your man Flex. I'm out. Peace.